Welcome to the Beehive. We're talking to Brad Fischetti from LFO about 3 minutes in, but first, this is my theme music.
You're now entering the Beehive with your host, Double B.
Welcome to the Beehive. I'm your host, Double B, aka Bobby. And it's hot out here right now. I live in Washington, and we basically get about 2 weeks of summer. But the trade-off of that is none of us have air conditioning in our house, or, at least none of my friends. So it's 2 weeks of suffering, basically. But, whatever. Because today I'm talking to someone who his group has sold 6 million albums. I'm talking to Brad Fischetti from the legendary boy band LFO. And for me, this was especially cool because I remember just being 11 years old, dancing to Summer Girls and being like, this is my song. I was a big fan at 11 years old. So it was so cool just to circle back to him and see, what was going on with you at the time. And he was awesome. In some ways, LFO, it's almost kind of a sad story in that Brad is the one living member of the group now. Devin and Rich, the two other members, passed of cancer at a young age. And so Brad is he's made it his mission to preserve the group's legacy and just let everyone know how talented these guys really were. So you got to respect that. We talked about Lou Pearlman, who, if you don't know Lou Pearlman, I don't want to say he manufactured, but, he created groups like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and LFO and a lot of the big ones at the time. So we talked about Lou, we even get into spirituality some, and we talked about a lot of things. So, let's just get into this. Welcome to the Beehive. So I have a lot of ground to cover. I've never talked to anyone from a boy band before, so I'm very interested in just your perspective and experience. I guess first, let's just talk a little bit about the song Summer Girls. One thing that really stands out to me about you guys is it seems like you actually wrote your own songs. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why we actually were able to have any sort of longevity in boy band terms is because we did write our own music. And, if we would have sort of followed, let's say, what the formula was back then, we would have failed after one single because we weren't really, we were in the same genre as, let's say, Backstreet Boys or NSYNC, but we were just a lot different than those guys. And so some of the songs that the label wanted us to record were sort of very prototypical boy band songs that I don't think would have resonated with the people because they just didn't feel natural for us. We weren't out there doing a lot of synchronized dancing and singing in 5-part harmony. So the fact that we showed that we were able to write our own music was a real godsend because that first record was the 3 out of the 4 singles were songs that we wrote, and if it had gone the other route, I think it probably would have been dead after one mediocre single, to be honest with you.
So, would you even consider yourselves a boy band at the time, or is that how you thought of yourselves?
Yeah, at the time we hated the term.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't like it. we didn't feel like we were it. And at that time, it wasn't necessarily a positive term, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of a almost insulting in some ways. We all were trying to sort of break out of just typical boy band. Today, I embrace it wholeheartedly. You know, it's because of that genre that I get a chance to do stuff like this. You know, because we were part of that genre when a great era for boy bands. You know, Backstreet and NSYNC and Motown and 98 Degrees and before us, New Kids on the Block. And so I feel really fortunate and blessed to look back and go, wow, you know, I was part of that, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, I embrace the term these days. And you know, it's funny as you the other day I was watching some '90s R&B videos, you know,
Hmm.
and I love '90s R&B, you know, Jagged Edge and 112 and they were a little bit later than '90s, but Shy, Silk, and those are boy bands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They really are. I mean, dressed the same, doing dances and singing to the ladies, and so it's like, you know what, the boy band genre is cool. I enjoyed it, and I still enjoy that music. And so today I embrace it. Back in the day, we didn't embrace it very much at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was still the hottest thing in music at the time. Whether people say it's cheesy or not, it was making money.
The fact is, when CDs were still selling, you know, NSYNC sold 2.4 million CDs in 1 week.
Yeah.
You know, that was a record. And so, um, you know, it was a big part of a lot of people's lives. Um, the music of your generation, right? And so if you grew up and from seventh grade to 12th grade, the boy bands were big, then you know that you have a lot of memories associated with the music of the boy bands. And so I'm cool with the term these days. You know, I don't know if you saw, but New Kids on the Block did a song called "Boys in the Band,"
Hmm.
and they reached out to all of us and asked us to send in like a little video cameo for the video. And then Downey did like a little rap where he mentioned all the different bands, and so
Sweet.
it was cool, man. I'm totally cool being called a boy band these days.
Hmm. Well, I think for a lot of people, boy bands could have even been their introduction into music because the audience was so young at the time. Like I remember being 11 years old or so, 11, 12, and like hearing Summer Girls. And it was just a very accessible, easy music to get
Mhm.
into. So for a lot of people, you may have been one of their first artists.
Yeah, you know, I've got a chance to hear a lot of interesting stories about, you know, the way the music has been a part of life and childhood. And actually, just the other day, I heard probably the most, I don't know if it's the strangest or most unique, but I met a man who is a priest, a Catholic priest,
Hmm.
and he goes, you know, your song "Summer Girls" helped me to decide to become a priest. And I was
What's
like,
the
okay,
connection there? How'd
yeah.
that help them decide, do you think?
You know, I didn't get a chance to like really dig into it with him, but I think basically he was a fan and he was discerning, and then like maybe the song came on randomly, and so he looked at it as, all right, that's a sign that I need to do this. So that was, you know, I've heard a lot of interesting things. Like I had my first kiss to your song or my first dance or whatever, but that was like that was very unique. So
Yeah.
listen, it's a real humbling blessing to know that you had a little piece of a lot of lives, and so I take that real seriously, and I look at it as a responsibility, and then I feel really really fortunate to have had that opportunity.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, it's interesting that one song has so many just different connections around the world. Did you feel like LFO, like you got the respect you deserved for your contributions to the music industry? Like, do you feel like you were treated fairly for what you were bringing to
Um,
the table?
no, not necessarily. A perfect example is this, right? 2010, Rich Cronin passed away.
Hmm.
You know, multi-platinum artist, wrote hit songs, you know, very popular in the music business. And when the Grammys did their annual tribute to fallen people in the industry, they didn't mention them.
Mm.
They'll mention a session musician, a producer, a record executive. But here we had Rich Cronin, who was a multi-platinum selling artist and songwriter, no mention.
Yeah.
And then 8 years later, when my best friend and bandmate Devin Lima died, I actually called Clive Davis, who was instrumental in our success. And I said, Clive, I just, the Grammys, they didn't honor Rich. And here we have Devin, who rocked the Grammy stage, who
Yeah.
performed on the Grammys. I said, can you please ask them to honor him? Not that it makes him any more important. I just thought it was the respectful thing to do. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I saw the emails that he sent on our behalf, and they didn't honor Devin either. And so that made me go, you know what? The music industry at large just maybe doesn't have a lot of respect for what the boy bands brought to the table. But the fact of the matter is, these are bands with really talented people, really amazing people. And Rich Cronin was literally one of the best rappers alive at his time. And you don't really get a chance to necessarily see that in our music. He does rap, obviously, a lot in our music. But if you give him a mic and a beat, he could hold his own with anybody. I'm not saying that you put him and Biggie up and he's going to smash Biggie.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that he could hold his own. At the end of that, Biggie be like, yo, you're dope. And I promise you that. And Devin Lima, he had a beautiful voice, man. He could stand up there with anybody and rock a stage. With that Grammy performance, he was up there with Fantasia and Steven Tyler and Maroon 5. I mean, holding his own because he was extraordinary. You got guys in Backstreet and NSYNC and 98, No Talent, all really talented men, great singers, great dancers, great songwriters. So I don't think necessarily we or other bands received maybe the respect that we deserved, or like you said, what contribution we brought to music. But I don't really hold a grudge. I mean, the Grammys thing really does upset me. And I was watching in 18 going, okay, or actually it was right in the beginning of 19. And I thought for sure, and I'm watching. And then it was like, I felt so deflated that they couldn't even just mention it,
Yeah. And what a small thing.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that was it. And he deserved it. He really did. So I decided not to make a big deal of it. But you know what? The respect that's most important to me is the respect we get from the fans. And that's something that we've always had a tremendous amount of respect from. And if we're, the fans are really obviously what made us. Their support of us from back then. So even today, in the endeavors that I do these days to help keep the LFO legacy going and to keep the memories of Rich and Devin alive, I'm humbled daily by the respect and the love that fans show. So I guess some of us have a tendency to seek attention where it's not given, and that's not really my focus. I focus on those who do love us. I don't have anything to prove. I don't have any grudges to hold. So if this part of the business doesn't want to talk about us or remember us, that's cool. I'm fine, because we got the fans, and they show us a tremendous amount of love. And even just guys like you inviting me for interviews, I have a lot of respect for it. I don't look at it like, oh, well, let's see, how big is he? What can he bring? No, you know what? You asked me, and I think it's great, and I want to be a part of your journey in your business.
Well, I really appreciate that. And again, just appreciate you taking the time. That's something that was unique about LFO too, is you had a rapper. I think that's the only boy band that, had a rapper.
We started as a rap group, and, Rich and myself, hip hop was our basis. I mean, that was what we were heavily into as kids.
Yeah.
And with Devin, it was R&B, Stevie Wonder primarily. And so we started as a rap group and evolved over time. And, it's funny, in 1999, you didn't hear a lot of rap on the radio. As a matter of fact, Girl on TV had an 8-bar rap in it, and a lot of stations wouldn't play it because of the 8-bar rap. It's just amazing to see, how far rap has come. So yeah, I mean, hip hop is to this day is very dear to me. There's a few things I like to do more than rap, so I'm thankful for that basis. And we just, we were exposed to a lot of music as kids and young men, and so I think all those influences sort of came together to create what was the LFO sound.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you have a connection to one of the biggest rappers of all time, Eminem, who kind of parodied you on a song.
Yeah,
What was
I was telling my wife, about that the other day, and she
your?
I sang her the lyric, and she was like, you know, but
Mhm.
it was interesting because, you know, Eminem could be pretty ruthless when he wanted to be,
Sure.
and for us, I felt like he showed us respect because he borrowed the melody, but he didn't really talk junk directly about us. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so I thought he could have very easily just started ripping us up, but he didn't. So I was thankful for that. But yeah, a little tidbit of I guess you can call it an honor to be picked on by Eminem.
I would think so, and clearly he liked the melody enough if he's going to include it in one of his songs. You
Yeah,
know.
and here that was just I was just actually when I was looking at some of your videos, an Eminem video popped up as a recommendation,
Hmm.
like a documentary on his story, and I was reflecting on Eminem, and I'm a fan of his talent and his ability to tell stories. Um,
Yeah.
and he's easily one of the best rappers that ever lived, and he could tell a story, man. Like, and I respect him for that. I mean, obviously, some of the content maybe is not something that I want to be listening to, um, but I respect him for his talent and his storytelling ability, and just his work ethic and his drive. He's really created quite a career. I remember when his first CD came or his first single came out, with Dre producing him. I was like, who's this guy, And today he's just, a megastar. And, what's funny is I was reflecting too on another rapper who reminds me of Eminem, a guy named NF.
Hmm.
And a lot of people consider him a Christian rapper. I don't know. I mean, he mentions God once in a while, but I think he's more just of a clean rapper. He doesn't do a lot of cursing, but he's another guy who tells extraordinary stories, like stories that can bring you to your knees and tears. You know what I mean? But
Totally.
has a similar style to Eminem. So, but yeah, to go back to Eminem, I guess it was a little bit of an honor to be picked on by him.
Yeah. Well, so do you get like royalties when he, uses your melody in a song? Like, does that come back to LFO?
Yeah, no, he's got to use more than that. There's yeah, he
Hmm.
didn't use enough to for it to come back to us,
Dang.
um, but even so, it was it's still a nice little like a paragraph in the book of LFO.
Hmm. Well, so I heard that Abercrombie and Fitch didn't appreciate the shout out in the song. Is that true or?
Yeah, we thought, of course, there'd be some sort of synergy, right? Because the song was big. We thought
Hmm.
maybe Abercrombie would be interested in working with us in some capacity, and but we were wrong. They felt like their audience was college age and up, and we said, listen, we're playing shows every night with like 5,000 girls from 7 to 17 wearing your clothes because of the
Hmm.
song.
Yeah.
So they weren't interested, and that was fine because the song did good for them. It did good for us too. So I think it all worked out in the end.
I think they made millions off that song. And I'm just surprised that wasn't like a product placement or some deal worked out beforehand or something.
No, no, nothing more before, and even afterwards, they weren't really interested, and that was fine. Again, I think it served both entities well.
Hmm. What about, you have a lyric in there that Chinese food makes me sick. Was there any backlash from like the Chinese restaurant community on that?
No, I think in that day, it was most people just thought it was understood that it was just funny. It wasn't disrespecting any particular race or restaurant chain. The fact of the matter is, Rich really did not like Chinese food or any kind of Asian food. If you had like leftover Chinese food in the refrigerator, he would not eat anything in the refrigerator.
Mm.
You know, and I don't know if
Wow.
it was like a true fear or what, but he really just, and he was a very particular eater too. He was like, you know, that kid that would eat like chicken fingers and French fries and pizza. You know, he
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a wide a palate, right? So yeah, I mean, it was obviously it was just a line. It was there was no disrespect meant from it at all. And we didn't get a lot of hate mail over it. I think people realized it wasn't intended to offend anybody. So
Sure.
when Devin and I reunited in 2017 for the Rich and Love tour, um, we actually had a little skit where Devin came out eating Chinese food, you
Uh-huh.
know, during the set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh man, I thought you didn't like Chinese food. And he said, no, that's rich. I love Chinese food. So then we eat some Chinese food and hand out some fortune cookies and even now it's like we do a little, we do a little VIP as part of this Pop 2000 tour where I take a bunch of fans to a Chinese restaurant for lunch. So
Cool. What
yeah.
do you think, I mean, you were at the time, boy bands were just, super hot, biggest thing in music. What would be like your power rankings of the boy bands of the day? And I want you to don't think about, who's your friend or whatever. Like, if you were to rank
Yeah.
the popular boy bands, what order would it be?
So we're not including New Kids on the Block because they were earlier.
Yeah, I'd say they were earlier, so they don't count. Like in your
Yeah,
moment,
I think it was, it was probably, Backstreet, NSYNC, 98, us, O Town, I think, it's hard to say. O Town got popular sort of when we were sort of coming down. So I wasn't really necessarily experienced with like, I mean, obviously these days I tour with them and they're really close friends of mine, but I wasn't around to really watch everything that happened with them.
hmm
Whereas with I sort of grew up with the Backstreet Boys and knew NSYNC for a long, long time. So I got a chance to really see their rise and also tour with them overseas and different places and just see the pandemonium. So
yeah,
those guys, those bands are on a whole different level of success. You know what I mean? Whereas LFO might have sold 6 million records, those guys sold 60 million or six. They just
hmm
mega stars selling out stadiums and they deserved it because I'll tell you what, those guys not only they are so talented and they worked so hard. And so they deserved everything they got.
yeah. Well, and you were touring with Britney Spears at one point on the Oops, I Did It Again tour. What was that like? I mean, that must have been, megastar, rock star mode there.
Yeah, we toured with Britney a few times, and yeah, those shows were a lot of fun. Obviously, they were in big venues,
hmm
in arenas, and I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, just imagine rocking an arena. That's pretty much how it was, and we were blessed to be able to do that with Britney Spears and with some other shows as well. There's nothing like hearing a whole arena start chanting LFO,
Yeah.
and so Britney was. We always enjoyed her as a person and had a lot of respect for her as a performer, and so and we had a lot of there's people like on her crew that we were friends with or we knew, whether it was a dancer or security, things like that. So there was a lot of that in that time too, where the Backstreet Boys old drummer became our drummer, and their old
hmm
production manager became ours, and our choreographer started working with NSYNC, and so it was just a lot of synergy between the different acts.
Did you ever have anything where you're on the road where things just kind of went off the rails or something really extreme happened?
Well, we were on a tour bus driving from Minnesota to Utah when 9/11 happened.
Oh,
So I was in the front lounge of the bus. I had fallen asleep there from watching TV the night before, and I hear the bus driver going, "Brad, you better get up," because the TV was on,
Mm-hmm.
you better get up, you know. So I get up and I'm watching what's happening. So wake everybody on the bus up and we pull over. And we had two buses, one for us and one for the band and crew. And and you know, people, everybody wanted to go home. And I'm like, well, listen, we're on a tour bus in Wyoming. We're like about as safest place we could possibly be right now.
Yeah.
Um, so that was obviously quite an extraordinary experience on tour. As far as like experiences that don't include um, tremendous tragedy and disasters, um, I don't know, man. You know, we did pretty well. We had, you know, of course, your bus breaks down once in a while, or you get some dudes that, you know, that want to fight you. You know, I think one time we had a couple guys get jumped at a, you know, after a show, stuff like that. But for the most part, you know, we managed to make it through unscathed.
Yeah. Oh, good. You know, I was thinking about Britney Spears and like a lot of artists who were popular, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, and artists in general. And it seems like, you know, there's a pattern of mental health challenges. I think about like Aaron Carter recently seems to be having a tough time. What do you think is that like correlation, or what's that about? Because it definitely seems like, you know, artists, it's more common.
Yeah, you know, it pains me to see some of the struggles Aaron has gone through. You know, he was somebody who I've known since he was a little kid. I got a chance to play with a show with him back in December, so it was nice to be able to see him again. Um, yeah, I think mental health is something that has been ignored um, for a lot of the population, not just artists, for a long time. There was certainly a stigma around having mental health issues. I think these days it's becoming um, more accepted. I think more people are seeking assistance for mental health issues, whether it's counseling or medication. Why does it happen to artists? I mean, there's probably a plethora of reasons. Some people become famous way before, you know, before they even know how to drive. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what happens too, a lot of people find their identity and their self-worth in their fame. And so when the fame goes away, so does their identity or their self-worth, you know. So for me personally, I think I was fortunate enough to always not take it as sort of real life. You know, like if
Mm-hmm.
a girl will run up to you and start screaming like, "Oh my God, I love you, I love you, I love you," and you know, pass out. It's like, listen, you don't really love me. You don't know me. I mean, you might love what I'm doing, but you don't love me. So I never allowed that to be my full identity. You know, was it hard? You know, like to where you know, one day you're playing this venue and then 2 years later you're at a show watching someone else play in that venue. Yeah, it's not easy transitioning from, you know, you can't go to the mall to nobody really gives a crap what you're doing. But again, I didn't really find my self worth in the fame. Um, and so I just think in general, you know, we have a lot of mental health issues around this country, and that's probably a much larger question that I'm not necessarily qualified to answer. But I think for me, what I learned was, you know, you got this hole in your heart, right? And it's got a real special shape, and we try to fill it with all sorts of finite things, right? And that's what you know, I was doing cars, houses, whatever it might be. And then really the only thing that can really fill that hole is a relationship with God, and that's sort of what helped me to sort of right my ship, is realizing that I'm not my own. I'm not the highest authority, you know, and try to have a more well-rounded life with you know, try to build a relationship with God and realize that all the things in the world aren't going to make you happy, you know. And I think that's one of the problems that we face too. But I certainly have seen a lot of mental health issues in my world, and I have a lot of compassion for those who struggle.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe part of it too is like, as an artist, you have this sort of look at me energy, and that's part of what makes people want to be artists, I think sometimes, is like the positive attention that comes from that. So I could just see how that's part of what propels you, and then part of the challenge. And also, I think just being an artist, you're more like aware and sensitive to things. And maybe, I'm kind of answering my own question here, but that's a little what I was thinking about it.
Well, yeah, listen, I mean, when for how many years people would really analyze every way you cut your hair. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So as soon as we started making some money, I didn't cut my hair for 3.5 years. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because I was so sick of people telling me not to cut my hair. So there's those kind of things too. And there was certainly a time where like my self worth was based in, well, how do you look? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And that was a struggle because you were so constantly always on, like, in front of the camera, and is your hair good? How's your face? How's your body? How's this? So that's not really healthy.
Yeah.
Um, Thankfully, I guess I made it through. I mean, I've had my own struggles, but I don't think really that different than a normal person trying to live a good life.
Yeah. I mean, what was that like 2 years after LFO hits it big and then you're in the stadium watching someone? Like, what was your process then, or what was life like?
Yeah, it was interesting going to shows at places I had played before.
Hmm.
Or entering through the front gate instead of through the bus gate.
Yeah.
And there's times where that was maybe difficult, but I think I transitioned from the artist life pretty well, probably because I stayed in the business. I started a record label
Hmm.
as soon as we took our hiatus, and so I was still very involved in the music business. That was probably helpful for me.
Totally. Well, I want to talk a little bit about Lou Pearlman because, he was someone that was a big part of your career and a lot of people's career. And he's been taking a lot of heat recently, like the YouTube documentary. And, it seemed even like Rich had some issues with them. So, I mean, what was the process of even first meeting Lou, or did you go audition for him, or?
Um, so Lou had a lot of businesses, and in
Mm-hmm.
the 80s, he had a blimp business.
Mm-hmm.
He had like the McDonald's blimp, and up in New York, my older brother worked for Lou's blimp business, and then they moved the business down to Florida. And so I come down to visit. I got a chance to know Lou, and then Lou went to a New Kids on the Block concert, and he was like, he saw just the pandemonium and probably the amount of money that could be made in that business. So that's when he first came up with the idea of starting the Backstreet Boys. And so, like I said, I go down to visit. I can remember being down there when the boys first got together and just hanging out at the old blimp warehouse where they would practice, and it was just sort of very normal. And so my my brother knew that I had an interest in pursuing a career in the entertainment business, but I was on the college track, you know. And once the Backstreet Boys started really making waves overseas, he's like, "Why don't you move down? The Backstreet Boys are doing really well. Maybe there's something for you down here." And so I told my mom, like, "Listen, mom, I'm gonna move to Florida and be a rapper." And she's like,
I'm sure she was thrilled.
yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think so. Yeah, you're gonna leave college and move to Florida to be a rapper? Not happening. So it didn't happen right away, but eventually I moved down, and really I started working for Lou, just driving his limo, stocking his fridge, running errands, whatever I needed to do. And one day I was at his house and the doorbell rang, and it was Rich and a former member of the group named Briz, and they rang the bell, and they were wanting to meet Lou. And it turned out that we were both doing the same kind of music. And so Lou sat us down in his game room, and he brought out a guitar and he started playing La Bamba. And he's
Uh-huh.
having us like sing the La Bamba. It's like, what is going on here? But anyways, he said, "Hey guys, why don't you guys consider joining forces?" And that's how it started.
Wow. Did you ever sense any like weirdness? Because it seems like, there was a lot out there about shoulder rubs or I
Well,
don't know.
the only thing I have to say about Lou is he dumped millions of dollars into a bunch of guys with no history, and
Mm,
helped us all achieve our dreams and our goals. Um, and I'll always respect him for that. Obviously, we had some difficult times with contracts, this, that, and other thing, but I don't have anything negative to say about him. When he was on, he was a lot of fun to be around. I'm sure he had his personal issues like all of us have, but um, God rest his soul. I'm thankful for having had the opportunities that I had. If it wasn't for his support, we wouldn't have had it.
yeah. Well, and a lot of people are kind of a mixed bag like that too. It's sort of like, yeah, he may have had whatever issues, but then we wouldn't have Backstreet Boys or, a whole piece of music history wouldn't exist.
Yeah, I wish he would have sort of once he started really making it big in music. I wish he would have gotten rid of the other stuff that he was doing that he went to jail for. The what do they call it, a Ponzi scheme. I wish he would have just sort of cashed out of that and just he could have been a music business mogul. Really could have been. So that was sad. I was sad to see the way he went down, and um, but like you said, if it wasn't for Lou Pearlman, you wouldn't have seen the Backstreet Boys, you wouldn't have seen NSYNC, and you wouldn't have seen LFO. I mean, each one of us might have done something in the music industry, but it wouldn't have been those three bands on top of other artists that he was behind as well.
Hmm. It's sad sometimes when it just seems like people are driven by greed, or it's like you could give people a more fair deal and it wouldn't even threaten you as a rich person, you know? Uh, how,
Yeah, it's tough. I think in hindsight, if once things started moving, if we all would have sat down at a table and sort of renegotiated without having to spend six figures on lawyers, that would have been nice. But
Mhm.
it's hindsight, like they always say, is 2020. And the fact is, when you're out there showing some success, there are so many people in your ear telling you that they can do it better for you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it fractured a lot of relationships. And yeah, greed. Yeah, listen, greed is one of the what do you say, one of the seven deadly sins, right? So
Hmm.
um, it was a tough time, man. I don't necessarily look back on it with joy. It was the LFO experience was we had a lot of amazing experiences, but I wouldn't say it was a joyful experience. Obviously, if you follow it along to today, it's a tragic experience.
Yeah.
Um, but um, I made a decision a while back that I was going to honor Rich and honor Devin and do whatever I could to keep their names alive and help people remember just how amazing and how talented they were. And so that's my focus. I don't really focus on the bad stuff.
Hmm.
Focus on the fact that these guys we left me a great legacy to cultivate and to nurture, and I'm thankful for that. I'd much rather have them with me, um, but that's just not the way things went down. And so I'll spend my life doing my best to honor them.
Yeah. In a way, it is sort of tragic to have, both Rich and Devin passed of cancer at a pretty young age. And, it seemed like you could have had better deals. But I know you're a very spiritual person. Let's talk a little bit about that. Have you always been really religious or?
No, no, I don't think so. I think I grew up with a pretty regular spirituality, like
Hmm.
church on Sundays, not every Sunday, but you know, you know that kind of thing. Growing up as a Catholic, major sacraments, First Communion,
Hmm.
confirmation, things like that. But it was never a real spiritual household. That's praying before meals or praying the Rosary or reading the Bible or anything like that. Then, as I get older, I moved to Dallas when I was 18. And that's when I really first started really trying to teach me more about religion and spirituality. It's the Bible Belt down there.
Sure.
Looking back, that's sort of where God was first sort of reaching out for me. I just didn't necessarily recognize it. And then even as we move into LFO days, we would pray before shows, and brought our Bibles on the road. I'm not saying we were living this great Christian life, but we believe, and it was an important part of our lives. And then I went through a period where I lost my faith, and that's probably a whole different episode. It's a long story, and I lost my faith completely. And like I said earlier, when you become your highest authority, that's when trouble starts. And so, life got a little bit difficult. Seemingly it was going well, but then life got pretty difficult. And like so many do, and when they're faced with tremendous hardship, they seek God again. And that's sort of my story. Is man loves God, man leaves God, man comes back to God. And so I've learned that life with faith, for me, it just goes a lot better. And so now I just try my best to hold on tight and try to, keep a good, close relationship with God and try to make good choices.
Yeah. Well, it seems like, the world is kind of struggling in a way right now too. COVID and everything that's happening is, it's like everyone's just taking a collective major hit right now.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any kind of lesson to be drawn from this, or anything God's trying to teach the world? Or
Yeah, I am not necessarily one that thinks God is inflicting some sort of punishment on us. Um, I think there's always a lesson to be learned. I'm not exactly sure that we'll get a clear picture of what the lesson of these days is. I think it'll sort of reveal itself over time. For some of us, I think we've been forced to get to know our families better, and like if you think about, I was thinking about Kanye West, his Christian record, and he says, closed on Sunday, you're my Chick-fil-A. And he says, says, put away the selfies, get your family together and pray. You know what I mean? And that's sort of what I think, a lot of people might have come to realize during the COVID is like, we're all here together, and what can we do to make use of the time? And you can't even go to church if you want to go to church, or you can't, a lot of things you can't do. So I think we gave everybody a chance to maybe get closer as a family. For some, I guess for some people it was, really difficult to spend more time with their family. But
yeah,
I think it gives you a chance to really take a look at life and think, well, what really is important, But I can't say that the lessons are very clear. It's like you said, it's a challenging time in this country and around the world. And I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. If you watch too much news, then you won't get any more clarity, because this side, thinks it's nothing. This side thinks the world's ending. So truth somewhere in between. And so I've sort of pushed back from trying to gather too much information at one time with everything. And there's certain things that you just sort of say, what, I'm going to give this one to you, God, because nothing I can do. I'm just going to hand this over to you and say, and pray,
Well, it really resonates with me what you're saying about this is like a major perspective shift. Or, you can get so caught up in your day to day of like what's going on with your business or career or whatever. And then, something happens, like someone close to you dies, or there's a worldwide pandemic, and it's just kind of like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
How much does that little work fight even matter,
Yeah, we had a bunch of shows. We haven't talked about it yet, but I've been a part of this Pop 2000 tour.
Yeah.
Which is some different acts from that genre. O-Town, Ryan Cabrera, Lance Sturman Singh hosts it. I'm there, and O-Town, together with O-Town, we do like a nice LFO medley. Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray was supposed to join this summer. We had a bunch of shows booked, and they all got postponed.
Yeah, bummer.
That really stinks. But when you look at that compared to more important things, you know what I mean? It's not that big of a deal. Obviously, it really stinks for us and for the fans. But I'm more concerned about people who are getting sick or people who are losing jobs that might not ever come back. That's my bigger concern than me not being able to go out and play these shows. However, what I've seen with the way things are today, right? We've been for quite some time inundated with influences, right? Whether it's Facebook or Instagram or the news or Twitter or text messaging, whatever it might be. And more than ever now, we need a little break from all that. So I've sort of said, you know what, as an entertainer, that's going to be my position, is to offer a little respite from the craziness of the world. There's plenty of people out there that have a lot of things to say about various topics, so I don't need to be one of them. Frankly, I just get sick of hearing so many people talk about things, whether I agree or not agree. I just don't want to hear anymore. So I'm looking at entertainment as a way to get away from it, which is why I'm really excited that the baseball is on tonight.
Sweet.
My team is on tonight, and I'm like just really looking forward to that, or just listening to music, or watching a movie, or watching a funny show. It's like this really has given me a good perspective of just how important entertainment is in a life, because right now it's just, you could very easily spend your waking moments just listening to all of the tribulation and the strife. I'm not saying you discount it and you ignore it. I'm just saying you got to have a break from it once in a while for your mental health, So I'm looking at entertainment as an opportunity to do that, to offer a respite. And with our tour, the Pop 2000 tour, we're taking you back to a time where life was much easier, right? When you're in high school or college or grade school, and much less responsibilities, before marriage, before divorce, before kids, before jobs, before losing jobs. It was just a much easier, peaceful time. Again, I'm not saying skirt your responsibilities, but I'm saying, hey, it's okay to go back for a couple hours. And that's what that Pop 2000 tour does, is allow people to go back to an easier time, a happier time. And I think those moments are really important for mental health. I can just speak for myself, is like, if I don't give myself my own time in the course of a week with a wife and 5 kids, then I'm just not going to do well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think too, it's like music, you hear that song from when you were 12 and it takes you right back there to thinking like, what was my life like then? Or it's almost a little time capsule in a way. So that is something really special.
For sure.
I'm definitely with you of kind of, we're getting inundated with so much stuff, or I'll see a Facebook post and I'm like, feel myself actually getting angry. And it's like, well, that's not good. So
yeah. I think social media, can be a difficult thing to live with sometimes. So I think especially today, it's probably good for people to take a little break from it once in a while, and just whether it's read a book, take a walk, exercise, listen to music. I think those are important parts of every day. And so I've been trying to do that myself.
Yeah, how are you coping with all this? I mean, your tour gets canceled. What's been how are you doing?
I think I'm fortunate in first of all that I'm an introvert, so like not being able to leave the house is a good thing for me. Like I enjoy just being alone or just with my family. So, but my neighbor is the opposite, and he lives alone, and he says it's like torture. So it really gave me a chance to realize that an extrovert, extroverts get their energy from being around a bunch of people. So I started thinking, this poor guy, like him not being able to be around a bunch of people would be like me having to be around a bunch of people all the time, So I have a little more empathy for those who find that part of it difficult. Obviously with the kids and their schooling, it's been different, been a bit of a challenge, but we managed through that. And again, I think it's at the point now where there's so much information. It's hard to understand what's right, what's not right, what's the best way to do things. So you just sort of gather the facts the best you can. And for me, pray about it, and then you try to make the best decisions you can. And so I'm thankful, for my family. We've been doing pretty well. My son is 3, and he's had respiratory issues in the past, so we try to really keep him as safe as possible.
Yeah. What's your message to, the world out there, the people that are really having a tough time with this, who, maybe listened to LFO growing up? Like, if you could talk to those people direct, who maybe someone's just lost their job or something, what would you say to them?
Yeah. That's kind of a difficult question because everybody's situation is different. I don't think there's one thing I can say that makes everything better.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say that as a person, I have a tremendous amount of compassion and empathy for people who are struggling in any way. I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, been through a lot of stuff, and I can relate to a lot of different people in different ways. And so anytime I hear from a fan who maybe lost his or her job, I let them know I'm praying for them and see if there's anything I can do for them. And things will get better. We all know that things generally, for the most part, get better. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to look like. My hope is that next year things are better than they were this year. I don't know when or if we'll get back to normal. It's just hard to say. Nobody really knows. That's the thing. This is unprecedented. Nobody really knows. Everybody's just trying to make the best decision they can. The fact is, none of us know. We don't know what the stock market's going to do. We don't know what unemployment's going to look like in a year. We don't know what this disease is going to do in a year. We just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have any closing thoughts or anything you want to say to the people out there?
Well, first of all, I'll say thank you to you for inviting me here and offering me a little bit of your time and talent today. And for those who watched this, I'm thankful for watching. Go back and check out some LFO stuff and take a listen to Devin Lima. And if you never heard of LFO and you want to get an idea what he sounds like, listen to the song Forever. Get a good glimpse of him. And if you never heard Rich Cronin, listen to Summer Girls. A beautiful song that he penned, or Girl on TV that he wrote about Jennifer Love Hewitt, another great song. In 2017, David and I did a new single called Perfect 10. So check that one out too. And again, my whole point of this LFO thing is just to keep their memories alive. And so anybody who watched this, I would just say, honor the boys by going back and listening to some LFO.
How can people connect with you or find you all online?
Yeah, so our Instagram and our Cameo and Facebook is The Real LFO. And then I've got just my name, Brad Fischetti, for socials, and you can find us there, lfo.me. The website's pretty cool. I have a whole tribute page with different pictures and stories and things like that. So we're there. So anybody who wants to learn more about the LFO experience, that's the place to look.
Well, you all had a piece in music history, and just again, I appreciate you taking the time and your thoughtful answers and everything. And just good luck with everything you're going to do next.
Yeah, you too, brother. Good luck with your endeavors as well, and thanks for pairing, and thanks for taking the time.
What a cool guy to come on my little thing and chop it up with me after everything he's experienced and done. You got a lifelong LFO fan in me over here, Brad, from 11 years old to 80. I'm a fan. So Just thank you for taking the time to be here. As always, everyone who's listening, please give us a like, give us a share, give us a subscribe on YouTube, or just help us get this out here, man. I'm having a great time doing this. So we'll be back soon. Bhive, we're out. Peace.